Behind Blue Eyes, it all starts with a young guy named Bill Bullion and a young girl named Alice Adley. He was from Kingsport, Tennessee, but his family moved to Delmar, Delaware, and Alice was from Pittsville, Maryland. Bill had moved in with Alice's parents. They lived on a farm where they had a huge chicken house that holds about 800,000 chickens. They also had pigs and cows. They had crops of corn, soybeans, and green beans. They had lots of work to be done around the farm. Bill, on the other hand, wasn't interested in doing any work. He was so lazy that it was shameful to have to live with him in their home. Helen is Alice's mother, and she was a hard worker. She stayed in the chicken house so much that she might as well have lived there. All that Bill ever wanted to do was lie around with Alice. They had just gotten married a couple months ago. Both of them were 18 years of age. Helen didn't care too much for Bill, and her husband Marvel didn't either. Marvel worked on their second farm in Selbyville, where there were 3 more chicken houses and about 100 pigs. Marvel couldn't be around much because he was always at the second farm. Alice was already pregnant for the 3rd time. She had already lost 2 babies that were stillborn. Bill thought Alice had been acting really strange. He just knew she was up to something. All of a sudden, the phone rang and Alice grabbed it as if she were waiting for it to ring. As she picked up the receiver and said, "Hello?" the person replied, "Hey, I have that." He said, "It will be about 10 minutes before I get to your house." She said, "All right," and then she hung up the phone. Bill asked her who was on the phone, and Alice said, "Wrong number." Bill could tell she was lying though. Alice then said, "I have to go to the bathroom." She wasn't going to the bathroom though. She was stalling to make time to sneak outside. She didn't want Bill to know that though. As she snuck out the front door, she noticed that it was very cloudy outside. It looked like it might rain. In fact, she could smell the dampness in the air. She thought to herself, "I hope he doesn't take too long to get here." She had been feeling sick for a couple days now, but she wasn't going to tell Bill. As she turned and looked behind her, she saw who she was waiting for. He pulled into the driveway in his big green Ford Limited and left the motor running. She ran up to his window as he rolled it down and put his hand out to give her something. Alice told him, "Thank you," and turned and walked away. The man put his car in reverse, backed up and drove off in a hurry. As she walked in the door, she saw Bill sitting at the kitchen table eating fried chicken that her mom had cooked earlier. She snuck past him, went upstairs and opened her bedroom door. She reached under her bed and pulled out a cigar box, which she brought to the bathroom, then locked the door behind her. The next morning, Bill woke up to the smell of food cooking. So he sat up in bed, wiped the sleep from his eyes, and stood up to go downstairs to the kitchen. As he made his way to the kitchen, he thought to himself, "Smells like bacon." As he walked in, Helen asked, "Are you going to sleep your life away, Bill?" He didn't say anything. Helen then asked him, "Would you like a couple bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches?" He said, "Sounds good to me." "Where's Alice?" Helen asked, "Is she still in bed?" Bill said, "Last time I saw her, she said she was going to the bathroom. I think she was feeling sick." About that time, Alice stumbled into the kitchen looking like a zombie. Her mom spoke up and said, "Are you okay? You look awful. Do you want something to eat, Alice?" "No." She snapped back at Helen. "I feel sick, so I'm going to bed," Alice said. Then she turned and gave Bill an evil look and said, "Don't you bother me either." She turned and walked out of the kitchen. She went back upstairs to her room. When she got there, she opened the door, walked over to her bed, and took something out of her pocket to stuff it under the mattress. Then, she just let her body drop onto the bed. Bill said, "She is acting really strange here lately." Helen said, "She doesn't eat enough to keep a mouse alive." While thinking to herself, Alice really needs help. "Bill, how come she didn't go to her doctor's appointment?" she asked. He replied, "She said she was sick and that she wasn't going." Helen answered with a giggle, "Isn't that why you go to a doctor?" A few months later, Alice was in her room with the door locked as usual. Bill thought she was acting really strange. He wondered if she was cheating on him or something. He didn't know what her deal was, but he knew something was amiss. He just couldn't figure out what it was. He had seen the big green limited a few times before, but he never knew why they came there. He had mentioned the car to her before, but she would say she didn't know who it was. She said it was a friend of her dad's. Alice had been staying in her room with the door locked lately. She wouldn't let Bill in, so he had to sleep downstairs on the living room couch. Bill never really got to see her a lot anymore. She seemed angry with him a lot lately, so he went to his mom and dad's house. He was a very jealous man, and he just knew she was up to something. The next day, Helen was sitting at the table slowly sipping coffee from her mug while watching snow come down outside. It was coming down in flakes almost as big as snowballs. There was a freakishly early winter storm watch out and there was a foot of heavy snow on the ground already. They were expecting another 1.5 feet. Helen really hated driving in the ice and snow. The roads get very slick and treacherous. The worst part is that you could slide on black ice and never see it coming. On the other hand, Bill loved the snow. He would go out onto empty parking lots and slide around doing donuts. He really enjoyed playing in the snow. Meanwhile, Helen had been cooking Thanksgiving dinner since the day before, just trying to get everything ready to eat. She made mashed potatoes, glazed ham with pineapples, stuffing, corn, green beans, cornbread, soft biscuits, roast beef with potatoes, dumplings, pumpkin pies, apple pies, sweet potato pies, cranberry sauce, dinner rolls, and yams, gravy with all the fixings, and she always cooked a big turkey. It was about 20 pounds. You could smell turkey throughout the whole house, and it always made Marvel's mouth water. Helen had the table set up so every member of the family could come and eat. Alice walked in the kitchen and said to her mom, "I am hungry enough to eat a horse." Helen said, "Sit down and I'll make you a plate." "Have you seen Bill?" asked Alice. "I think he went to his mom and dad's house because you wouldn't let him in." Helen said it with a giggle and a smile. Alice said, "Oh well." Then she saw Bill's Chevy sliding sideways through the driveway. She said, "Speak of the devil. There he is. He's back." Bill shut the engine off and swung his door open. He got out of the car and walked toward the house with a big grin on his face. What he didn't know was Alice saw him through the kitchen window. She couldn't remember the last time they had this much snow in November. She picked up a piece of turkey and stuffed it in her mouth, followed by some stuffing and yams. After a few bites, Alice said, "Mom, you sure are a good cook." "We got plenty," said Helen. She turned around to make Bill a plate as he came in the door and sat down next to Alice. Helen made him a plate and sat it in front of him. Marvel walked in from the barn, where he had been feeding the pigs and cows. He looked at Bill like he was crazy and said, "Have you lost your mind? You were going to get yourself killed driving like that in the snow." Bill turned and glanced at Marvel with a smirk, then went back to eating. Marvel went to the sink to wash his hands and said, "I can smell the food from outside. It smelled so good that I couldn't wait any longer. I had to come in and eat it." Helen made Marvel's plate and sat it in front of him, then turned around to make herself a plate too. They all ate until they couldn't eat another bite. Bill ate so much pumpkin pie that he thought it was going to come out of his ears or he would turn into a pumpkin. In all, they had a good Thanksgiving dinner. It wouldn't be long to Christmas now, so Helen went to the attic to get her Christmas tree and the ornaments to go with it. The Christmas lights, icicles, and tinsel. She always puts her Christmas tree up after Thanksgiving, and she really enjoyed putting up the lights outside too. She asked Bill to help her with the lights, but he said he couldn't because he had to go back to his dad's house. The truth is he didn't have to go. He was just really lazy and didn't want to help put the lights up. So, she thought to herself, "I'll get Alice to help me put the lights up instead." As she turned towards the door to the stairway, she then started climbing the stairs as she got to Alice's room.